Today we are talking GFIs, and some of my rentals are HUD houses or government assistance, which is good for the tenant. You know, that way they don't have to pay the full rent, and it's good for the landlord because the check is in the mail. But one thing, if you're a HUD landlord, everything's got to be in really good shape safety-wise because of your inspections. I got one here going to be re-inspected, and first thing I always do, I try to go through and check it before they show up. And one thing, I always check my GFIs. So like with this right here, do a little test. So that one works. I know that was good. All right. But then I walked over here and I noticed this one is not testing. So that will fail my inspection. Then I thought that then also over here, this will also fail my inspection. It's not lighting up properly. And that tells me that is a hot ground is reversed. So I got to take this apart and see what I can find out. So I got two problems right here in the kitchen. And I walked into the bathroom earlier and I found out the bathroom GFI is not tripping. So that's pretty rare to have two bad GFIs at the same time. But this house is, I don't know, 13 years old. So maybe it's just time for them to wear out. In fact, I've noticed I've already replaced this one. It looks like it's been changed because it's different from this one over here. So I guess it's just time. So I'm going to get these apart and see what I can find. Okay, I got both receptacles apart now, and the current is still on, so I'm testing this. So when I make contact, we go over here. I still got a bad connection. That's faulty. It won't work. So my assumption is the reason why I've got the reverse polarity is due to this defective GFI. So I got my new GFI here. I'm going to replace, and I believe when I replace it, these lights will be correct, and so I can pass inspection. And something I was just going to show. GFIs are real simple to replace. You just want to be careful and watch what wires you're hooking up in the correct way. You want to keep in mind what you have. You got line and load. So the lower wire here, this is coming from the breaker box. That's your line. And then the upper one is the load. That's anything downstream. So that way, this is of course GFI protected because you see the big GFI reset switch. But because it's set up wired up with a load, and the load is downstream, anything on the load side is downstream. Now, if this wire was not connected to this, if it was just, connected down here, it would not be GFI protected. But by connecting up here, you run 4 or 5 receptacles off of one GFI. I'm sure there's a limit. But that way everything downstream of this is protected. Well, here's a good example over here. Let me see. I'm going to plug this. Okay. How that's plugged up. All right, so you trip this one. Well, let me do it again. Trip this one. Turns out that light. So this receptacle is downstream of this GFI. And most houses nowadays, they have at least two circuits in the kitchen, on the counter anyways. So they're both on 2 separate breakers. So I'm going to change that out and see what happens. Correct something, I misspoke. This is the line coming in, and this is the load, which goes into the wall and feeds this other receptacle. So that's where these little tools here are very handy. You don't have to have a voltmeter, you just touch it to the wire, and you know if you got current. So that's the line from the breaker box. Here's the load heading to the next receptacle. So now I know which exactly, because they're here in the back of this, it tells you where to hook your line up and which is load. And you got a strip gauge too, so it's important to use your strip gauge to get the correct length on your wire, because like in this new style, you shove the wire down this little hole and then tighten up the screw to make your connection. Unlike this old style, you wrap the wire around the screw and put it in. So I like these new styles much better. So now I know that which is line and load, I know exactly what to wire up, and I'll get her done. Okay, I've got my wires straightened out. I'm fixing to just shove them down in the back and tighten up my screws. But they was a mess with it. It's all twisted up and they's way too long, so I have to actually shorten them up a little bit. So, get ready to turn this back on and see how it works. Okay, so it was what I suspected. So this bad GFI was giving me a bad reverse on the downstream receptacle. So I hooked it up, turned on the breaker, everything works fine. Yeah, I can test it. See, a light goes out, reset, light comes on, and I got the proper light, so it is wired correctly. So when the HUD inspector comes in and does the same thing, plugs up his tester, we won't fail inspection. And I can test it this way too. There we go. So that wasn't so bad. 2-minute job, got it done. And I didn't have to call my electrician. I just thought I was finished. Evidently not. While walking around checking all the outside receptacles, because any receptacle outside needs to be GFI protected. So I went out here and put my tester in. Well, where'd my tester go? It's in my pocket. I have my tester, and I just thought for sure I hit this button, and well, I got the breaker off anyway. It was not GFI protected. I thought, well, that's odd. So then I went out to the front. It's also on concrete. It is also not GFI protected. And then I went into the garage because you got concrete out there. Anytime you're dealing with concrete, wet floors, you got a chance of electrocution. It's not GFI protected. So I went to the breaker box and I seen here, you know, garage. There it is, garage and outside plugs. So. And I did notice also this receptacle is on the same breaker. So see, there it is. So what I'm hoping for, of course I could go and put a GFI on every single receptacle, which that could be done, but I'm hoping the way they wired the house, you just have to assume, because you can't see through the walls. You know, this is the closest to the panel, so I would have to assume they've come out of the panel, hit this receptacle, hit the one outside around the corner, then probably came over, hit this receptacle, and then the one on the front porch. If that's the case, then I can just put a GFI on this one receptacle and everything downstream will be protected. So that's what I'm about to take apart and test to see if that's the case. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I've got the first receptacle apart here at the breaker box. So now I'm going to test for which is the line. Okay, here's the line in. There's the wire going out. Now my hope is that this is hot coming in. This is the wire going out feeding the other receptacles. Now my hope is everything else is dead. So let's find out for sure. Right here. And it is. Dead receptacle. That's good. Go in here, see if this one's dead. It is. Alright. So that tells me this is the first one after the breaker. So it's coming in here, hitting this, and going to the rest. So now I'm going to put these wires together without getting shocked, because they're live. Let's see if I can do this. Come on, get in here. Okay, just like that. Alright, now that I've made that connection, sort of, I should have current outside. Let's see. I do. Alright, now I'm going to check the other ones. Yep. Okay. Got one more to check. Awesome. Okay, now instead of putting in 1, 2, 3, 4 GFIs, now that I know this, I can put in one GFI here and make everything else downstream GFI protected. And so that way, if anybody's outside getting any kind of water, the one GFI will replace or protect all the other receptacles. So I'll change that. I'll put a GFI in real quick and test it and see how it does. Got the old receptacle out. I got my wires all straightened out and trimmed where I need them to be. And I was just going to show again, we talked about line and load earlier. So here's the line. That's the current coming right off the breaker. I flip the breaker, we've got no current. Put the breaker back on, I got current. So this will go onto the line side of the GFI. This is going to be the load side of the GFI. This is everything downstream. So this is going to protect 3 more receptacles downstream. So I just got to hook that up and put my tester on it and make sure it all works. Okay, there she is, right next to the breaker box. She's plugged up, do a test. Okay, that trips. All right, now, the key thing is everything else going to work? So let's go outside the outside receptacle. Remember, it's just a plain old receptacle out here, but it's plugged up downstream. And you see it's lit up. It's wired properly. Test my button there. It trips the breaker, kills the current. So it works. Alright. Well, come here. And then go back here and reset. And check the garage. Same way. It's got one more to test. Get that done. Right, she's lit up. Yep, I heard it set trip. So now everything is protected. So for anybody, I want to talk about the importance of these GFIs a little bit. Say for instance, you come out here to your garage and you have one of those old aluminum heavy duty drills and you plug it up and you're barefooted. But that aluminum drill has shorted out inside. So the casing is now hot. Then the current flows through your hand, through the drill, into the concrete. And you wind up dead. So GFIs are very important. I got the breaker, it tripped it. And especially in rental property, because there could be some liability involved if you don't protect your renters. So that's worked out pretty well. And instead of buying 3 or 4 GFIs, I just had to buy one. And everything is protected. So I think I got this project done now. On to the next.